Today we're looking at Krishna's Freedom Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Krishna's Freedom Blue is a part of their specialty line of inks, and it is a blue ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do my writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Noodler's Ahab with a modified flex nib to take my notes for this video. Now before we go look at the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is a true blue. There's nothing about this in the chromatography that says other than blue. It's great. It's a primary blue that is nice to look at. And we do get a nice darker line of blue across the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And the line across the bottom we see much more distinctly as it pushes up. That means that it just starts to seep in quite a bit, maybe has a tiniest bit of hold on, but then after that, the chromatography looks exactly the same. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pens. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it is not good for me. When I look at the capital H and what happens, that's 3 days of drying, and that H, if you're not sure what's written, this feels like it could destroy the words and maybe make you lose some important notes. So I wouldn't use it as a note taker. Now water does reactivate and does start pulling some of this ink up off the page, but not a lot of it, only the darkest tones, which I'm very surprised by looking at the chromatography. Pen Flush did everything that water did and more. We start to see some of the white of the paper come through in a couple of the spots, which makes me feel like Flush is all that you might need to clean this from your pens, but it might be a little persistent. So then I would go to a 1/3 bleach solution. Now the 1/3 bleach solution obliterated it off the page, leaving a little bit of yellow staining. If I had to use bleach, I would put it in and immediately get it out and immediately flush it from the pen. It looks like there might be just a little bit of opportunity to have to use that. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Krishna's Freedom Blue has a viscosity of 1.57, a wet ink, well into that red zone. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Krishna's Freedom Blue has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making it a faster drying ink. Now, let's look at the writing sample. Mark for color correction. I picked this ink up in bottle form back when I ordered like 30 plus bottles of Krishna inks. And this is an interesting blue because it's not like super there, but it's very nice. Nice. That's the only, nice. Such a nice boy. Nice. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at that Clairefontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and crazy shading the whole way through. Really nice color. Like I said, it's a very nice color, very laid back blue. It's a calming, laid-back blue. So if you're kind of chill as a person, then hey, take a look at this blue. It's not screaming at you. Nice shading with that 1.1. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. And yes, we are getting some shading, even though we can't seem to frame in the center. And I use this ridiculous pad or cutting mat underneath so I can frame. I don't know what my problem is. So it does have some nice shading with the extra fine. Very nice. It's It goes very light and very dark and very light and very dark, all in the same word. It looks fantastic. It really does. There's been a few of these Krishna inks that I wish came in larger bottles, and this is one of them. 8 seconds to dry. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and yes, lovely shading the whole way through, and 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby doesn't show us the color variation we actually are getting in the writing sample, so the scrubby lies, but the smear test says we could likely recover it. So we look at Tomoe River. Tomoe River gives us no bleeding, it gives us ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It does give us shading. Really nice shading. I don't think this ink writes nicely in the 1.1. I don't think it looks as good in the 1.1, but it doesn't look bad. You know, so it's just looking at it, it's just not 1.1 to me. That's why I like doing different writing samples and being able to see. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We lost all the shading on this. It took 13 seconds to dry. The medium became a noticeably darker tone with no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both the extra fine and the medium showed no color variation and we didn't get it. The smear test says you likely don't get to recover it if you smear while you're writing. I'm just going to blot this so when I turn the page I don't destroy the next one. We see it goes down crazy thick. That's a modified flex nib to make it easy to write with. I did that because I was just looking at what does it look like with a flexy nib, and someone's going to tell me it's not flexy and whatever, you know, tomato, tomato. I don't like how it looks there. I like how it looks there. Not smeared, but in the writing. Rhodia. Rhodia gives us no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and yes, shading all the way through. And it's really nice shading. It really is. The extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It does offer some very nice shading throughout all of the writing. All over, quick, starts dark, gets light, gets dark, gets light, gets dark again. Love it when it does that in the writing. Really, really love it. 10 seconds to dry. Medium, noticeably darker tone. We lose a little bit of the qualities of this ink. It has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Lost that shading. And 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby shows us we're not going to get any color variation, and we didn't. Not for the medium. The smear test says we could likely recover it. Now, I went and I tested this on yellow rhodia. The yellow rhodia, that gave us no bleeding, no ghosting. A noticeably lighter tone the whole way through. So it did lighten it up. In some areas, it turned that blue into a nice kind of turquoise. Very nice. I really like this particular ink, this particular blue. So laid back. 1.1 had no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It really brought out that shading. It is beautiful. It is from very light to a mid-tone. It doesn't go to dark. Not on that 1.1. The extra fine had no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and yes, it offered color variation all the way through. It is a noticeably darker tone than we got with the 1.1. But great shading all the way through on this yellow paper. When it's darker, we see the blue. When it's lighter, we see it more as that turquoise. Very, very nice. 10 seconds to dry. The medium gets noticeably darker. It's really turning away from the turquoise towards the blue, that actual blue that it's supposed to be. It had no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. It took only 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both showed us no color variation, which is not true. On camera we see the color variation much more left to right of the extra fine. We did get color variation in the writing sample. The medium we got none, we didn't get any. Smear test, we can still recover this. So I tested this also on Krishna Hazel paper. So I tried to test all of their inks on the notebooks they were selling. And this is the notebook they were selling. And I picked up a few of these and because I had to wait a couple months and they were really not very expensive. Just like the bottles of ink were really not very expensive. Very nice. Really performs well. It's a toothier paper. but it performs super well for most inks. And here we have almost no bleed. We have spots where it's starting to bleed through. That's the medium. Those are the scrubbies. So if you're using this with a fine or an extra fine when you walk around, you're going to be perfectly fine. The extra fine gave us nothing. And we have no real show-through, no real ghosting. The 1.1 had no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. The extra fine, same tone as we got with the 1.1. No feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. Only took 6 seconds to dry. The medium was a noticeably darker tone with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. Only 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both showed us no color variation. We didn't get any color variation. And the smear test, though, I don't know if you could recover this based on that smear. And that's all that I have for the writing sample. Instead of finding inks that look like Krishna's Freedom Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now, I'm not normally thematic, but in this case, I felt it was appropriate. I chose Krishna's Freedom Gold because it's this kind of yellowy brown that is beautiful and does go great with this, and both your inks can be freedom themed. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Krishna's Freedom Blue? I think it is a very nice, gentle, kind of casual blue jeans Friday kind of color. It's really what it just made me think of. It performs very well. It writes very nice. It is not a screaming blue. It's not so light you can't see it. It always writes in a way that's nice. And that's why I say it's kind of like that casual blue jeans Friday kind of color. Which sounds weird because it's such a serious name. Thanks for watching.